Because the reality is that we're all psychic. We have a pineal gland, a pituitary gland, a physical body. I say
Yeah.
our physical body is our best divining rod. We're spirit and human body. And just as I was talking about as part of my awakening, those energy releases within my body that I started feeling, that was part of my growing awareness of how I was going to be the scientist, as you so eloquently said. And because I was skeptical,
Mm-hmm.
my father was a physician. I worked in healthcare. I'm a very open-minded, open-hearted person, always have been, but I was skeptical in a healthy way, because I worked in kind of a science-dominated field at the time. And so I listened to what was happening, I paid attention, and my own belief has grown over time. And I would just hope that people also would listen more to some of those possibilities within them versus the limitations that society and different structures put upon us.
Hello and welcome back to Journey of a Fearless Female. I am your host, Paola Rosser, and this week my guest is Angela Bixby. Living beyond the five senses is how Angela Bixby has always lived. She'll tell you that she has got the call to live a more spiritually oriented life in 2010 when she found her way to psychic school in New York City. Angela walked a spiritual path her whole life, has been a highly sensitive person, and has mastered many ways to support others as they walk this earth as a spiritual and sensitive being. Having developed all of her psychic skills, having studied a few hundred hours with many energy healing practitioners after having helped over 10,000 clients, Angela best serves her clientele as a consciousness mentor and spiritual development coach. I'm so excited to have you. We were just talking before this. She's my first psychic medium on this podcast. So, Angela, thank you for being here.
You are welcome. Thank you, Paola. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be your first psychic medium on your show.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's talk about your journey as a fearless female. Let's go back before you recognized that you had any gifts or that you even thought they were gifts. Tell us about what your life was like before the discovery of your gifts.
Absolutely. So while I live on the East Coast of the US now, I grew up on the West Coast. I was born and raised on the West Coast. And I like to think I had pretty cool parents and pretty progressive parents, having grown up in California. I was hit by a car when I was 7.
Mm,
I was born in the 60s. So this was in the early 70s when I was hit by a car and had an out-of-body experience.
mm,
Many people at that time period really felt that physical trauma was what was needed to kind of like activate psychic skills. We've learned since that that's not the case.
yeah.
I made it through that experience. Obviously, it was traumatic for the family, but still didn't realize what had shifted within me. Being a child and sort of being able to read people's feelings and just having this really deep knowing, I later found out I was claircognizant and empathic my whole life. I just thought that's how everyone was. So I made my way through the world, through life, moves, all the things, college, growing up, college, all of that. Went into a traditional career, got married, had kids. And it really wasn't until I got a divorce in 2003 that I really stepped a lot more intentionally and consciously on my own spiritual journey and really embraced kind of my inner fearless female. You
Yes.
know, I found that my work in corporate America had felt really restrictive to me. So I was very much open to kind of what was going to come next, status post divorce, raising kids, all of those things, that new version of my life, as well as what my career could look like and what my work in the world could look like.
Yeah.
And I kept longing for and wanting to be psychic, not realizing that I was, and going to practitioners and studying with a shaman. And then in 2009, I started having some spiritual awakening experiences that were sort of enough for me to stand back and notice. And then again, I had a mentor that I was working with at the time, and she's the one that helped guide me towards the psychic school that I ended up in 2010. And so when my clients now, this is a second career for me, when my clients ask me, and when people ask me in interviews and things, and when I speak, when did you know you were psychic? I say when I landed in psychic school when I was in my early 40s. At that time was when I realized, I sort of clicked back through my whole life and went, wow, I've been psychic my whole life. I thought I needed to find this. I didn't realize it was something inside of me and it's always been here. So
Mm,
that was really kind of a big aha and pivot moment for me. And so all of the work that I had been doing in terms of remaining open to what might be next, what might my fulfillment be, how am I going to gain these psychic skills? It all coalesced in that moment for me realizing that, I'm here, I'm in the right place, I'm learning. And from there, really the journey continued, with in a
Yeah.
more methodical way.
I am
Um,
so into near death experiences. So I really want to talk about your out of body experience after the car accident. Do you
Mhm.
remember, because you were 7, you said, do you remember any of the details of what you felt and saw during that experience?
Yes. So the actual near-death experience part, I did not go to the light. I did not see a light. I was in the care of neighbors, like a friend and her older sister on that day. And it was, I had decided to do doorbell ditch because I wasn't liking like how I was being treated with the kids playing together. I was feeling left out. And so it was kind of out of anger that I did this, decided as in my 7-year-old wisdom to do doorbell ditch. The front house was made of glass. Like they could see what I was doing. But again, 7-year-old wisdom didn't realize that. I just wanted to, be seen and be heard.
Hmm.
And so I've since learned that our depth perception doesn't develop until a few years later, either in our brain. So as I, was doing this and kind of looked up the street to see if the roadway was clear, I misjudged the depth perception of the vehicle and they ended up
Mm,
hitting me. So when I sort of came to in my out of body experience, I was floating about 30 or 40 feet above my body. I could see the ambulance and the EMTs and everyone, the neighbors around my body on the floor. And or excuse me, on the ground, on the grass, on the neighbor's lawn. And I instantly remember thinking and feeling, I hope this is a dream. Where's my mom? I hope this is a dream. Right. So it was very
mm,
fearful for me. And I sort of hung around and floated in that state. I mean, I can clear as a day now see like the ambulance doors closing and
hmm.
the ambulance driving away. I have memories of the different times that I woke up in the hospital at different times. So I didn't go to a light. I didn't sense or feel guides around me. I didn't
Mm,
have any of those experiences that many near-deathers talk about. I really feel that I know I wasn't ready to go clearly.
yeah.
And so I hung around my body a lot, really just waiting for that consciousness. But one of the things that came out of that, I have memories. I remember I was it was 1974. So at that time, we stayed in the hospital a lot longer when we weren't well. So I was in the hospital for 2 weeks.
Mm.
And I remember once I was moved to more the children's ward, having experiences of like flying around my room. And then when someone would come in the room, I would go back into my body.
Oh,
So I
how
had,
fun.
yeah, like just a number of out of body experiences in that way. So it wasn't as much the big scary, like I said, going to the light.
Yeah.
It was the experience of seeing what it's like to be out of body as
Yeah,
a result
and
of
and
that.
having the control of being able to do whatever you want, almost like a lucid dream, where you
Mhm.
have that lucid dream and you know you're dreaming, and then you're like, "Oh, I can fly." And so you start flying. That's incredible. What an
Totally.
incredible experience. Oh my gosh. Okay, so how like I never even knew there was such a thing called psychic school. Like how did you figure this out, and what was like this calling towards like, okay, I'm going to go to this school and I'm going to learn my intuitive gifts?
Great questions. So what happened to me is two different spiritual experiences. Well, I'll list three. So this happened over about a year and a half. I started having experiences in my body of feeling energy releasing in my body. So if you've ever been in a situation where you're getting a massage and someone's massaging muscles and you can kind of feel the endorphin release in that moment, do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
That was happening to me spontaneously without, say, like someone massaging my forearm, where I started having these random and spontaneous energy releases inside my physical body like that. So at the time, I noticed it and went, I'm starting to experience what energy feels like when it's moving through my body. About 6 months later, and as a person, I'm not really afraid of much, hence why I was attracted to talk to you on your Fearless Female podcast here. And so I had another bout of fear that I really hadn't had since possibly my near-death experience a long time prior to that, where I was awakened in the middle of the night because I could feel there were spirits that were shaking my mattress, as odd as it sounds. So it was a
Mhm.
bit scary and alarming. So I woke up and was like, well, this isn't fun, speaking to the air, and they went away. A few months later, they woke me up in a more gentle way, and they combined the feelings that I had been experiencing in my physical body. So basically, from head to toe, I could feel energy running through my body. They did not shake my mattress the second time and scare me. But as I was coming out of that liminal space between sleep and waking, there was a flat screen TV on my wall, and I didn't have TV in my bedroom at the time. And so I came up out of that experience, logged it in my head, and called the woman that I was doing some mentoring and work with. She was a shaman, and said, "What's going on? I woke up with this flat screen TV on my room, and the imaginal space, it wasn't literally there, but it looked like it was there for a few
Yeah.
moments." And she said, "You're going to channel. You're going to find a channeling school in the area. I'm not sure how you're going to find it. It's going to work out for you as a single mom in terms of your budget and your time with your children." And so we hung up the phone, and this was 2010, and I just started Googling channeling. I really didn't know what I was looking for, Paola. And I found what popped up was Holistic Studies Institute in New York and Chelsea in Manhattan. And they had a course about 10 days later. It was affordable. It worked with my budget. It worked with my schedule. I didn't have my children. And so off I went. And that's how I found it. And at the time they were running weekend classes that were about 6 hours on a Saturday and a Sunday. So again, I was able to go up on a Saturday morning, spend 2 days. I'm about 2 hours from their drive. So it just all worked out. I
Oh,
knew when I was there, like part of what happened that first weekend was I thought to myself, okay, I'm here. I am psychic. I've been psychic. I'm going to learn how to become more psychic. And I just had this knowing, this really deep knowing that I was meant to help connect people to their intuition for the rest of my life. So I thought, okay, I'm here. I'm in psychic school. It's very different from a traditional corporate career that I was in. And I
yeah.
know I have this place that I'm moving towards and this mission. Don't know how I'm going to get from here to there, but here we go. I'm going to start putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to ask, you said earlier that the old notion was that you had to go through some sort of near-death experience in order for you to tap into these intuitive gifts. Now, for people who are listening and have never really explored near-death experiencers or their stories, I have seen and heard, because I've listened to thousands of near-death experiences, because when my father passed away in 2006, I personally grew up in Catholic and Christian
Mm.
background. I just remember, like, after he passed, that I was like laying in bed and thinking, there's no way my father is being tortured for all eternity in hell, because he was an alcoholic when he passed. He died because he drank his liver to death, but
Mm.
I couldn't fathom that eternal damnation for my father, because even though he was an alcoholic, he was still a great person, great man. He had a lot of love in his heart, and so I just couldn't fathom that. And I went down the whole path of learning about near death experiencers and what happens on the other side. And everybody has a different and beautiful experience. And some do come back with gifts, but some don't come back with any gifts. It's kind of like the toss of the dice, but the fact that you said that you did have these experience of an out of body experience and then didn't feel like you didn't have any gifts, do you have any instances between you going from age 7 to going to this psychic medium classroom, like anything that happened to you where you kind of chalked it up to like, oh, that was just a coincidence or that was just a happenstance and there was nothing spiritual or psychic about that?
Yes, a number of things that I can look back on in childhood, but the one that's most prominent that comes forward, I'm sorry for the loss of your father. Part of who's reminding me of this experience as we talk is my father, who's in spirit also, because
Mm,
it's a story about traveling with him. When I was a teenager, we traveled as my father was born in England, so we traveled as a family, at least my siblings and my father and I traveled to England to meet and visit with his family over the summer. And I had this uncanny, it was called ability to have a sense of where we were going. I was not of driving age. I was about 14, 13 or 14, maybe 15 tops. I was not driving yet, had never been to England, and we were lost a number of times. And I was able to co-pilot my dad to like get us to places that he didn't know how to get us to. And he had a pretty good sense of direction. And so there was this family joke about, I thought, oh, well, yeah, I'm eagle eye. I must just know this. Again, I just thought everybody sort of had access to things and could figure things out that way.
yeah.
And so that would be one where, they all kind of wondered, like, how do you know this? But it got us to safety and it kept us moving along, so she helped navigate our journey, even though she's not a driver and she hasn't been out of the country before. So that was one that was a bit perplexing. But again, people kind of thought, no, that's Angie. She's kind of got a weird way that she moves through the world, middle child, all the things. The
Yeah.
families just sort of roll in your personality and who you are into the family and don't think a lot more about it.
A lot of the gifts that we have, all of us have, I think we all have intuitive gifts. And we were talking about this earlier, where some we always chalk it up to, oh, that was just a coincidence or that just happened. And that it has none of the two are related. But I started to see things in my life and I started to see things spiritually instead of just like, oh, that's just logically what happens. No, I started to see things as spiritually. After my dad passed, I would talk to him often and I would talk as if he was still in the room. I talk to God, source, the divine, as if it's my best friend. And like
Beautiful.
miracles and crazy things would happen to me. And I'm now teaching my clients to do the same, and I tell them,
Mhm.
you don't have to believe, but you could research and pretend you're your own scientist and write the hypothesis, test the theory, and then figure out what the results are. And you will have like the most incredible experiences. And I love when my clients reach out to me and say, "You're never going to believe what happened." And I'm like, actually, I can believe it because we come from this infinite intelligence that created everything and everyone and has the ability to basically bend time and give you abundance and create the resources. And like you said, all of a sudden now there's like a black screen TV. I have these most incredible vivid dreams, and that's
Mhm.
how I feel like the real world is, like where you not the real world, but like how it really is, where you can think about it and create it, and you can think about it and you can do it. And I think we're very trapped in the constraints of what this world wants us to be, like go to corporate. Like I love that you said you felt so limited there, because I
Mhm.
think that's what they want us to do, is they want us to feel limited. They want us to be limited and they want to control us. And I don't know who they is, maybe the government, maybe society or whatever, but we are truly unlimited beings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gosh, you said so much in this. One of the things you said earlier about your background when your dad passed is I would say, yes. I mean, where we are historically and culturally,
Hmm.
you know, where you and I sit today in 2024 recording this podcast is so different than even when I was in psychic school in 2010. When I was in psychic school just 14 years ago, it was really seen as still kind of like taboo and not real. All these things that you just expressed, and the beauty of source and the beauty of our connection and our knowing and our skills and what we all have within us. And that whatever these oppressive forces are seem to try to keep us down and not in touch with them. And so yes, it hasn't really been a part of Western culture. It's been seen as taboo, especially through religion,
Yes.
and anybody that's been in, whether this lifetime or others, I believe that we all have many lifetimes, many
Hmm.
incarnations. It could have been an oppressive past life where someone said to you, what do you think you're special that you can divine? So it could be sort of an abusive scenario with an authority figure, a parent, a child, a religious figure. But somewhere along the line, it's too bad that we listen more to those negative stories
Yes.
and those belief systems. And I think there's simplicity in the way it weaves into the world that people are trying to kind of paint for us is part of why we go along and get along with that. And
Hmm.
yeah, I was excited to talk to you today because the reality is that we're all psychic. We have a pineal gland, a pituitary gland, a physical body. I say
Yeah.
our physical body is our best divining rod. We're spirit and human body. And just as I was talking about as part of my awakening, those energy releases within my body that I started feeling, that was part of my growing awareness of how I was going to be the scientist, as you so eloquently said. And because I was skeptical,
Hmm.
my father was a physician. I worked in healthcare. I'm a very open-minded, open-hearted person, always have been. But I was skeptical in a healthy way, because I worked in kind of a science dominated field at the time. And so I listened to what was happening, I paid attention, and my own belief has grown over time. And I would just hope that people also would listen more to some of those possibilities within them versus the limitations that society and different structures put upon us.
Yeah, exactly. I think so much of religion is about control. I stopped going to church a long time ago simply because I never felt empowered leaving church, and I felt more shame and guilt and feeling less than and never good enough. And I'm like, I don't want to feel like this every week. I don't want to start my weeks feeling like this. And so I stopped going to church. And the more I learned about vibrational frequency and being on a certain frequency, you can manifest and create versus being on a
Mhm.
lower vibrating frequency, you are just kind of like stuck and your energy is stifled. And so the more that I research, the more that I believe that like church keeps you at that lower vibrational frequency so that you're always feeling like you need something outside of you to approve of you and tell you you're good enough or you're worthy or you're not a sinner and you will be accepted into our kingdom. When in reality, the kingdom lies within you and you already have all the gifts and all the knowing. It's just being able to tap into that. And that's what we should all be learning is like trusting ourselves, our gifts, our knowing, like, because I get spiritual signs all the time. So my father passed away on March 22nd of 2006. And just this, we're recording this on March 26th. So on the 22nd, it was the 18th anniversary. And in some years I get really sad, and some years it's just the year passes, right? And this year I was going to make a little TikTok video with like some words, and as I'm going through my phone to try to find the pictures, I got really sad because I started thinking he's missed all of these amazing moments in my life. And so I was in this like place of just really sadness. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm even getting sad thinking about it. But I was going for a walk and I was just like, God, I was talking to God, I was talking to dad. And I was like, because I know that once you pass, you return to source. So it's all connected. We're all connected. We're all one. So I was talking to God, I was talking to my dad, and I was just kind of like, I miss you. I wish you were here. I wish you could see these things. And I know you can. I know my logical saying is not that you can't see it, that you're not here, but my spiritual side is saying, yes, you've been there the whole time. You watched it, and you probably orchestrated some of these amazing events in my life. And I want to say thank you. And in that moment, two butterflies just circled around me and flew away. And then I get this beautiful hummingbird, like super close. And it's just
Mhm.
like fluttering. And the hummingbird is like looking and then looking at me and then looking at the plant. And then all of a sudden I keep walking and three doves fly like right in front of me. And I'm like,
Wow.
if this isn't you, Dad, then I don't know what it is. And
Wow.
I look at these spiritual signs, I look them up now, I Google them, like, what does this mean?
Mhm.
What does this mean? And I
Mhm.
mean, I get all these signs and I don't believe they're coincidences. I don't
Mhm.
believe that this just happened to be because I go for a walk almost every single day. I don't see a hummingbird every single day. I don't see
Mhm.
butterflies every single day. I definitely don't see
Mhm.
three doves every single day. And so
Mhm.
you can't just chalk these things up that happen to you. And I know that if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, that you too have experienced little beautiful signs, either from a past loved one or even when, like, for example, I was in this terrible relationship where this guy was cheating on me. I didn't have evidence, I didn't have proof, but every night I dreamt that I was supposed to check his phone every
Mm.
night. And it was as if somebody was saying, like, you need to check his phone. You need to check his phone. And I couldn't shake it. I would wake up and I was like, was that a dream? Am I just like being weird? And I would have these heart palpitations every time I was around him. My stomach hurt. And
Mm.
finally, when I finally got the guts to check his phone, there was the evidence that he was cheating on me. And it's like you have these intuitive knowings,
Mhm.
but yet we disregard them and we disregard our own knowing, our own gift. And we're like, no, we need someone else, whether it's an outside person, an outside organization, or an outside religion, to tell us that we are good enough and that our
Mhm.
gifts and our knowing is valid.
Agreed. Agreed. Fascinating story. I I just had another experience drop in for myself along the same lines, and this was before I ended up in psychic school. So it was probably 2000, it was 2004, 2005. I was dating a guy at the time, same kind of thing, was not having dreams that he was cheating, but just had a sense that something was off. And when I finally learned that he was not only two-timing me and another woman, but he was like giving the same identical gifts with same identical inscriptions. It was really creepy. When I had the confrontation with him, and again, before I knew I was psychic, in blue, the phrase liar flashed across his head when I was talking to him. And I sort of like shook my head and just thought about it myself. And unfortunately, I did go on to kind of continue to dance with him for a little bit longer. So for whatever reason, I felt like I needed more proof for myself. But you
Mhm.
are so right. I would have saved myself a lot of time and a lot of grief had I just run the other direction at that point.
Yeah.
And I think it's a process building that inner knowing because until we realize how much we doubt ourselves, I don't think we realize how much we don't believe in ourselves until we kind of, at least my experience was I had to doubt myself a lot before I would
Mhm.
really learn to trust myself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's go back to when these spirits were tugging at you on your bed, and you said you didn't really fear them. You were kind of like, "All right, what was that?"
Mhm.
So do they still come to you, and or do you like set times? Because I watch a lot of medium shows and stuff, and I know that some of them say they set times because then otherwise these spirits will continuously come and try to talk to you because they really are trying so hard to
Mhm.
connect with their loved ones, and
Mhm.
connect. They have messages and things they want to say, not because they're the ones suffering, it's because they see you suffering here on the living side because
Mhm.
they're in bliss. They're having a
Mhm.
great old time over there. We're the
Mhm.
ones that are suffering here, still stuck in our limited capacity of the 3D world. And so they just want to tell you to stop being so sad or to stop being feeling guilty or holding on to that, baggage. So I know that there's a lot that people coming to you or spirits coming to you. Do you have like a certain time frame where you're like, nope, at this time?
To a degree, yes. I built that in right away when I was learning. And, I teach people to do this now through my conscious psychic program. And so there's a lot that I have to say on the teaching front for people at sort of all different levels. So yeah, people can set times that are more devotional, right? So, but what's really key in that question that you ask and how I answer it is, it's really important for us to demonstrate our free will and to be directive.
Hmm.
So, if anyone listening is having these kinds of spiritual experiences, whether they're really subtle or really extreme, right? Just as you wouldn't, well, this is part of how we were taught errantly, I would say. We're not supposed to put spirit on a pedestal, right? So a lot of times people think that they should let spirits come to them all the time, right? Like, oh,
Hmm.
if they're talking to me, then I'm supposed to honor that, even if it's inconvenient for my life or keeps me from what I'm supposed to be doing. But just as we wouldn't open up our windows and our screens in our home and let all of the bugs and the birds and the butterflies come in and fly around our house, we need to be that directive. It's really important for us to be that directive about our energy and our sensitivities and and what is coming to us. So it is always the right answer for humans to say, not now, I'll let you know when I want to talk to you, regardless of the source of the energy, right? Whether it's a dead person, whether it's a higher dimensional galactic that's trying to channel through you, right? Because it's sort of everything in between is covered by all of these unseen realms. So being directive, really taking charge of your space, standing in your own inner agency and authority are important when you're having these experiences. Everybody's different. I didn't have things sort of banging at my door all the time, but I have a lot of clients who come to me that are like that, like I just
Mm.
described, where they feel like anything that comes to them, they need to let come through. And we're all connected and we can all approach this a little bit more methodically in ways that keep people growing at more of an incremental way that might leave them feeling comfortable and able to cope with their own life. So it's going to be different for everyone, but being directive is really important. So I just want to remind people that they can say, no, don't come to me now, or yes, come to me when I'm sitting on a meditation cushion, or only come to me in my dreams if you have messages for me. It's going to be really different for everyone. For me, there was a long period of time where I was clearly turned off psychically, meaning as I was learning, I wasn't going to allow myself to be on 24/7 because that can exhaust us.
Hmm.
So that's the other bit of wisdom that I would say to people about drawing these internal boundaries, as I call them with spirit, is don't allow yourself to be on all the time. We're here to live a human life. We're spirit in a human body. And we can have these very transformational, spiritually transformative experiences with spirit. And we can bring boundaries to them too, so that we're more balanced.
Yeah. Oh, so do you ever like kind of like what's the one girl on the Medium show where she's somewhere and she's like, spirit is here and I want to talk to this person. Do you ever just do like
All the
a
time.
reading on someone that's just you're just and do they ever do you have any stories of anyone that was just kind of a little bit weird where the lady or the person was like, I don't know who you are. Why are you telling me this?
Okay, I hear what you're asking. So no, and I actually teach people against that. I discourage that. love the Long Island Medium and Teresa
Oh,
Caputo and
that's who
how
it is.
much,
Yes.
yeah, and how much she elevated this industry in a way, right? But also there's a lot of production value that goes into her show. And so
Okay.
the way that I teach people is really ethically, right? I feel like we need
Mhm.
ethics. So no disrespect at all to Teresa Caputo and how they sort of show her walking up to strangers in a diner. I can tell you they signed, they signed releases beforehand. She got the messages beforehand, but that's sort of for production value. So I actually discourage my students from randomly walking up to someone that didn't ask for a message because you don't know where they are in their belief and they
Yeah.
didn't ask you for a message. So I see that as fairly intrusive. So no, I don't do that with strangers. But with people that I do know that know I'm connected, yes, I'll offer the messages. I mean, we'll be having a conversation, and because I am connected all the time to my guides,
Mhm.
they know, I'll say to them like, okay, here's the Angela perspective, and do you want the spirit perspective? And they're like, yeah, of course, please. And so I'll tell them what the spirit perspective is. So yes, the access is all the time, and that's where people absolutely can get to, is that you can kind of call on your guides to ask questions about things that are going on. So no, less of me walking up to people saying your dead grandfather's standing behind you,
Oh,
more of
good.
me saying,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I would think the same thing. I mean, yeah, it is definitely a production value, but I would think the same thing that you wouldn't want to walk up to someone and say, "Oh, I have this message from you." They're going to be like, first of all, especially if they're super religious, they're going to be like, "Get away from me, you witch," or something. And you don't want that kind of like, negativity surrounding you. But at the same time, what if they're not ready for that message? What if they're
Mhm,
not ready, like you said, in their grieving journey or whatever? For them
mhm,
to receive that message. So, yeah, I would
mhm,
definitely think that's an ethical way of not. If someone wants it, then yes, but you can't just always, just kind of even the same way. I don't like when people say, I want to pray over you. Well, first of all, I don't know where your intentions are with your prayers. So I
mhm.
don't need your prayers. Thank you very much. Keep them to yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And more so, I would say when I went to psychic school, my immediate family, like my parents and my siblings and my kids and my friends and all of that, a lot of them were a little nervous that I was going to, with my newly expanding beliefs, that I was going to assume that they were going to go along with me and believe what I believed. And so
Hmm.
I found that the best thing that I could do for my relationships at the time was to say, hey, I'm doing this thing, or some I didn't even tell for a while. And just because I'm doing it doesn't mean you have to believe in it. I just want you to believe in me and where I'm going with this, and you don't have to
Hmm.
change your beliefs. There was a lot of freedom and a lot of exhales and sighs of relief from my close people that were like, oh, thank goodness, because I don't know how I feel about this, Angela. I do believe in you, but I don't know that I believe in this stuff. So those boundaries are critical in this kind of work too, and just respect for other people and where they may stand in their journey.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what are you doing now?
Yeah, fast forward 14 years. I shed my day job in 2013. So I've had my practice full time for 11 solid years, going on 12 here in April as well. I'll start the 12th year of it being full time. So I do readings. I did energy healings for a long time. I had this bigger vision of having an online business and a laptop lifestyle, even when I started my work in person. So I've been all online since 2020. That helped move things online. My passion is to teach people to connect to their intuition. And so I do so through a hybrid coaching program that I have called the Conscious Psychic Program. So I spend a lot of time running development circles. We do it all online on the phone. It really helps people go deeper into their skills by not having, say, the visual distraction of video. And then they're able to really they're surprised at how quickly they can develop when they're in these sort of regular environments where we're practicing. They're all practicing their psychic skills. And so it's like my baby that I'm passionate about, the Conscious Psychic Program. So I do readings and I teach people in that capacity in some workshops here and there.
Oh, that's amazing. So tell us about what your normal client, because I think people think that like people who go to psychics or people who go to mediums or go get a tarot card reading, that they're all like hippy dippy, you know, tell us about the clientele that actually comes to you.
Mhm. I'm blessed to have a varied and international clientele. I mean, I have clients that sit in high positions in the military in the US government. I have people that sit in high positions politically. I have artists, actors, producers. I have people from all walks of life and stay-at-home moms, and I have some moms that have really sensitive kids will bring their kids to me for a session, wanting validation on some of the spirit guides they're picking up on and things like that. So it's varied. So many people are starting to see more the value of having a psychic help you with different situations in life
Oh, yes.
because I sit at a place where I can look at different possibilities and potentialities for a client, and that can help them whether it's in career decisions, whether it's in like products that they might be patenting or marketing, right? I've helped clients with things like that. So I've helped people kind of shorten some of the timeframes on their maybe trial and or error process through having a
Mhm.
reading with me, as well as, mediumship, helping them connect to dead loved ones, things like that. So the clientele are all over the board. And the ones that sit in, the C-suite and the high levels of different places around the country really interest me because they're able to get really humble and kind of get into the experience.
Mm.
People give me the feedback often that I'm kind of like a psychic therapist. So while my undergrad degree is in psychology and I have a master's certificate in holistic psychology, I've never done clinical work. I am not a therapist. I'm very honest, of course, with people about that. But it's an honor that they feel sort of nurtured while also getting a psychic reading. So they come off of the calls, the Zooms, feeling really uplifted. And that's the point of this work. I want people to feel empowered and uplifted, whether it's through reading or whether through learning and expanding of their own spiritual capacity. That's really my why of why I do what I do.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And I'm glad that you said that because I think people think like, oh, I'm not the type of person that goes to a psychic medium. You'd be surprised how many people talk to psychic mediums and talk to light workers and talk to people who do tarot card readings and astrology. I mean, I tell people it was here before religion was here.
Mhm,
People in ancient times, really, really looked at cards and looked at astrology and had shamans and psychics and people that like read tea leaves and stuff. This was
mhm.
all done way before religion came in on the board. So I think that you should give it a go. Again, try it. I always tell people, test it out, try it. If the results don't line up, then okay, that didn't work for you. But when you are in that place where you feel like you need answers and you're having that dark night of the soul and therapy isn't cutting it and reading a book isn't cutting it and you still can't sleep and you just need that reassurance from spirit, from the divine, from someone who's passed, then yes, I would highly recommend to get a reading because it brings you so much solace and so much peace and clarity. I've had many readings and it has always brought me so much divine guidance and I love it. I'm thankful for it. Okay, so
Wonderful.
as we wrap up this episode, what would be your nugget of wisdom for anybody who is listening or watching today?
We are all psychic. Do not gaslight yourselves. There's no need to doubt. When you have experiences that you may deem spiritually transformative, sit with them, honor them. You don't have to convince anyone of them. Sit with them and honor them. We get more of what we focus upon. So you can transform your doubt or your gaslighting of yourself pretty quickly if you stay out of trying to take the experience and the recounting of it to someone else for proof and really sit with the knowing of what it means within you. So yeah, I'm a big champion for the fact that we're all psychic.
Oh, I love it. Okay, how can my audience find you?
Thank you for asking. My website, energyintuit.com, ENERGYINTUIT.com is the best way to get a hold of me, get on my list, find out how to contact me.
Perfect. Thank you again. Thank you again for listening to Journey of a Fearless Female. I'm your host, Paola Rosser. If you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual mentor, you can book a free discovery call with me at www.fearlessfemale.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at fearlessfemale_coach, subscribe to my YouTube channel at fearlessfemale, or find me on TikTok. I'm under at paola.rosser. And if you love this episode, make sure you hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a review. I read every single review, and I truly appreciate the time you spend writing it.